Hey, everybody. This is a Wrestling Watchers episode brought to you by the Watchers Podcast Network. We have a cool guest who I've known for a very long time, and we're going to talk to him about some wrestling after the intro.
Gladiators clash, crown roaring. Shirts rip, muscles flex, ego soaring. Blood, sweat, tears on every ring, rope grip. Clothesline the downs, full body flip. Tight tense, drum blasting, pyros igniting flame. From the locker to the spotlight, all searching fame. Master Avenger with a chant, taking names. Suplex the haters, honor ain't a game. Ref down, chaos reigns. Alliances crumble, managers yelling. Split decision rumbles in. Championship belt dangling. Within reach, wrestling past hard and future's fierce screech. WrestleMania dreams, center stage taking flight. Fearless warriors brawling neath the bright lights. Steel cage marvels, legends in the making. Glory carved in every punch, no faking. Superstar ambition, scripted yet raw. Wrestling gods descended, crowding awe.
And
Does that song talk about pot roast?
I thought I heard that. I was like,
I definitely heard the word pot roast in there.
if it's a rap song about pro wrestling, you need to talk about meats and meat slapping. So
big meaty men slapping meat.
Exactly. That's what they do. We are here with Silverfox, who, to my knowledge, is the 2PW referee. And you've worked for other companies other than that, I believe. We'll get into that. But for anyone who doesn't know Silverfox, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Well, hi, all. No, Drew, John, I know you guys are a long time. Like you mentioned here before we started rolling, Backyard Wrestling. That was us in town, man. Hey, we had a nice little crowd that wanted to watch us. But, I am Will Guy Lasher, also known as Guy Harrison, formerly in IWC. I'm just now Will Lasher, or Silverfox, as the wrestling family knows me as. And I'm in 2PW, Prospect Pro Wrestling. We do our shows out of Worthington, Pennsylvania. Not too far out of Katanning. And I do a couple shows for 814 Wrestling out in Johnstown Mall every now and then too. So I've been around a little bit.
It's about the only thing left to do in that mall, honestly.
Wrestle.
It's still better than the Mills.
I haven't been to the Pittsburgh Mills in 10 years.
And that's all right because you ain't missing nothing, brother. It's dead.
So in the Worthington area, it seems like maybe not an area there you'd want pro wrestling, but it's kind of like in between some important junctions, like Tanning, Butler, Worthington's in between the two of those. Do you guys get a good crowd there?
Oh yeah. We sold out, I think, out of the last maybe 12 shows, we sold out, I think, like 8 of them, 8 or 9. I believe we sold out. Okay. So we hold it up at the Civic Center up there. It's not a real big place.
I was going to ask you if you did.
It's big enough.
It's big enough to do what we need to do. We're like right on that borderline of trying to find a bigger spot, which is always good. But right now, that's kind of a sweet spot for us because, we get our guys like Bradley Ruthers. He comes up from wherever he's at in Pittsburgh. He's a loyal wrestling guy. He goes to all the KSWA, IWC. He goes to all of the shows. So he comes up this far for us. So, that's pretty cool. We have a couple loyal guests come in, loyal patrons. So they stick with us. It's actually what you say, you wouldn't expect it to be a little hot spot for a wrestling area, but it does rather well.
I think it's a good hot spot. Like I said, I think it's in between a lot of like the major,
right.
Nobody wants to drive to Pittsburgh anymore or go places they want to go. So Worthington, boom, right there. Yeah. It's in between.
And, in that area, you get kind of like that's more farmy and I hate to say rednecky or Hickville or anything like that, but that's the type of demographic that still likes wrestling,
Right. There's the one popular gas station that's right off of 422 there. Everybody calls
We
the
all
racing
know
gas
that one.
station. We do.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so it's you know, there's jokes made, of course, but
The sign down at the end has been broken so many times from people throwing shit at it, right?
yeah. I stay out of the politics with that whole thing. I was like, okay, and I just keep
As do
walking
we.
'cause
It's funny.
You know,
That's
I'm
the
a-
only. It's a very funny situation, and every time I would drive down that way, it's also it's on the only strip of land in Pennsylvania where you can drive to a Ponderosa. So I was going
Yeah.
to Ponderosa every once in a while, and it
It's
was
true.
just a total treat to see all of those billboards and signs and stuff. It's just real funny. Somebody
Very popular gas station, though.
very popular, yes.
Oh, my
Yeah.
uncle loves it. But again, we can't get into the reasons why.
Well, right. Like I just tend to avoid, smile, and nod, and just keep going. And
hey, we love the local support. Worthington, you're awesome. Keep more signs everywhere.
Yeah,
that's right.
but that's
Atlantic
Center,
City
man.
style billboard.
Right. That's not a bad venue. I'm actually looking to rent it for these upcoming movies that we're filming, and yeah, I've been there. I've held like birthday parties there. It's a decent sized gymnasium. It had you have access to a kitchen if you're like doing any type of concessions. Parking, location, like it's actually not a bad location. I haven't been there yet, but my relatives all still live in that area, and it's funny that you guys brought that up because I was just at my uncle's house yesterday, and he was talking about 2PW, and we're talking about how we're all going to SummerSlam. We're driving to Ohio, and he's like, "Yeah, the only wrestling you need to watch is here in Worthington." And so I think my uncle is one of those loyal patrons that goes all the time because he's actually.
I think you should put that on a T-shirt.
Yeah,
the only wrestling you need to watch is in Worthington.
Yeah, there you go.
That could be a very good merch seller right there. Absolutely.
I think people like don't appreciate local indie wrestling though anymore because like everybody goes see WWE and now we have AEW on TV. TNA's been all over the place randomly.
Yeah.
But like you remember when Far North Wrestling used to go to their Northern Katanning up at the Belmont. The Belmont. And you'd have like ICW would do shows like down in New Ken and in other places close, but like you had this huge gap and like you had good stars coming there though. Like you had Samoa Joe, AJ Styles, Lord
Abdullah,
Zoltan,
man.
my favorite. Lord Zoltan.
He's a favorite on Facebook.
I hope he's still alive. He has my heart. That guy is my hero.
He's still kicking.
Love Lord Zoltan. Awesome.
He's still kicking and he loves his drag queens.
Okay, well,
just saying.
That's why he loves me.
Hey, whatever you gotta do. Hey, I'm all for it. I'm here if you need a hug.
But I mean, like, people don't appreciate, like, even like 15 years ago, like when I was younger, we'd go to these shows. And I like when Matt Hardy did that thing where he left WWE and he was going to all the indies. He came to ICW, he came to Far North Wrestling, and then there was a promotion that did something out of Indiana, at the Bull Pen over there. I don't remember what they were called, but they did something over there for a couple shows. Yeah, but people don't like appreciate like that era of like that indie wrestling because now you don't have that. Like, what are the indies now? Right? Like, we don't have these local shows aside from Worthington. Like, you have to actually go to a city.
That's one thing that I think it separates from Pennsylvania from where you're at in Ohio is we do have that. Like,
we do. Well, we have indie wrestling here in Cleveland. Absolutely, we do.
It's incredibly popular, especially out here in Central PA.
We have two promotions here in Cleveland alone.
Yeah, so I think like.
You have AIW or something?
AIW, and then there's like
RPW.
Northeast. I think RPW is a little bit more towards like Canton, more towards like the East Side States. But there's another one. I think it's called like. I'm on the spot now. I can't remember. But there we have two indies, and AIW is the most popular one, and we have people come through AIW. We have new wrestlers from New Japan, from AEW, come through here, but it's still not the same, man. Like that Katanning wrestling, even Worthington, like that was something special. Like that's in your backyard, like this weird like backyard. It was almost like backyard wrestling, but they had a ring. Like T Ranchula is coming. Right. T Ranchula is coming out with like a keyboard that some kid gave him as a weapon, and he's gonna hit, somebody over the head with it, right?
I think the indie wrestling scene has really bounced back from COVID in a way that nobody expected it to. Because I do think prior to COVID, that's when you saw the modern indies kind of disappearing, or people not really giving too much of a shit about them. And I don't know if it's because everybody was just flocking for entertainment post-COVID restrictions, or if because the wrestling business in a lot of cases kept moving forward the best that it could. I think a lot of the success post-COVID is post-COVID, and fortunately, wrestling caught on again, right? So, whether it's a lightning in a bottle, or if because WWE is on fire, or AEW there for a spell was super hot, the indies always benefit from that. And so it does seem like indie wrestling is getting back to that hotness. Now, is it 2005 IWC levels? I don't know, but it certainly it bleeds more into territories for me, I think, because I think in that era you had super indies. And if it wasn't a super indie, nobody gave a shit about it anyway either. And now the super indies have kind of all disappeared because of the other promotions. Like the super indies were, your Chris Sabins and your Alex Shelley's and your Samoa Joes and your Christopher Danielses, and they're TNA, AEW, or NXT, WWE. So I think the super indies have disappeared. So now there's so many indies that are popping up in different territories, and it kind of is the closest thing that we've ever experienced in our lifetime to that old territory. And it's just, I think as a wrestling fan, it's fun to see. For me, it was hard to watch, though, because right before, a couple of years before COVID, that's when I was training. And I believe, Willie, you can relate to this, but you managed to find purpose despite the fact that, if I'm not incorrect, like myself, you were training to wrestle, and your body just kind of gave out on you, and it just kind of told you you're too old for this shit.
Yeah, borderline that. During that time, I was also going through a divorce, so it was a blessing and a curse. It was a blessing that I had something to at least lean on, to kind of lose myself in for a little bit to get away from the whole mental thing, which, by the way, June, Men's Mental Health Month. Anybody ever needs any help, reach out for sure, because this guy's been there. It's rough, and I know more people has had it rougher than I. But back to the subject, it's and I lost my spot. Where was I going with this?
You started training as a wrestler.
Oh, yes. But, yes, training as a wrestler. See, so speaking of age, my memory just went, where are you going?
Yeah, a couple of chair shots in the backyard will do that too.
Yeah, during training, a couple head drops. That's all it was. No, but I was training to be the wrestler. And like I said, going through that divorce, I kind of took a break from training. I was training with Chris LaRusso, Andrew Palace at IWC. Two of the very great guys ever to known. Palace is cool. Chris LaRusso tried to just talk to get to know me, which is very cool, especially during that time I was going through. So I just kind of took his advice. He was just be 1% better today than you were yesterday. And I just kind of took that and kind of made that my thing for a while. And, it really helped me out. But the other thing was just with everything going on in my memory, trying to remember certain spots, certain, names of the moves, because for some reason, like when I was younger, I had a different name for different moves. So when someone says, give me, a jaw jack or something like that, I'm just like, wait a minute, what is this again? So I had to like stop and think, and I made myself feel really dumb. I'm just like, what is my deal? But I just chalked that up to the stress and the mental state I was at the time. But I was all up until the practice matches. I was doing one with Palace and things like that, and it was way too much for me to take in memory wise and to really get to know. So I wasn't really concentrating at the time. So LaRusso was like, we're going to try you out as a ref. And you know what? I think that was the best move, because I got over the whole stage fright of getting into the ring and afraid of, dropping a guy on their head. You know what I mean? So now as a referee, not only do I get to kind of know how the match is going, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, I get more time out there, and I hold more titles than anybody. So I can't knock it.
I think when it comes to indie wrestling, or even just wrestling in general, people underestimate the importance of the referee in the match, right? Like the referee holds the match together.
Well,
and like when we did the backyard wrestling stuff, for the most part, we never had referees. So like we were just out there hitting each other, knocking each other down. It didn't matter. So the cameraman would jump in 1, 2, 3. But the referee in all promotions, indie promotions, holds the match together. Timing, you guys know this. Well, maybe you don't know the spots for sure, but you know what's happening, when the counts. I'm trying to.
I get you. That's why I was like,
I just had to stop a little bit there.
There's a rabbit, but I'm not showing you where I put it.
Right. But like, it's an important role in the match. And I think people don't understand that. And people freaked out with Aubrey Edwards in AEW because she made herself like so known as a referee. And I'll keep my personal opinion out of it to the point that like it almost focused the match on the referee, but I don't think there's anything wrong with that, right? Like, you guys are in the middle of this fight. This is a war. It's a battle.
Let me interject here for a second. I can't speak for WC training. I trained at PWX in McKeesport under Brandon Kay, Crusher Hansen, and of course, Kato wasn't an official trainer or anything, but Kato came and as a veteran head always kind of stepped in and was able to help us younger people. And I can tell you that, and I remember this very vividly, I actually had the opposite problem from you, Willie, where I almost am cursed with memory, and just the most monotonous, dumb shit fills my brain. I wish I could forget some things, but we're in the ring, and we had just watched a couple practice matches, and they were going over their notes from it. And Crusher was very specific about how the reffing should have been done. And at the time, he was working at PWX, not only as a wrestler, but as a ref. And he formulated that into his gimmick at the time. So he was, while he was wrestling, he would still wore his ref shirt. And it was hilarious because he would, like, when he was pinned, he would count instinctively. Like, he would start counting as the ref, even though he was participating in the match. The whole gimmick was great. It was brilliant. But he very, very clearly stated, referees are to be seen, not heard. Referees are there to help call the spots and nothing more. Referees are not to take the shine away from the wrestlers. So I think a lot of people don't respect referees because people within the industry don't hold them to that standard. And this is a guy who at the time was working as a referee while teaching us that when you ref, you need to stay in the corner and fuck off, basically. That's what I was taught for refereeing. So you bring Aubrey Edwards up, and that to me is a point of contention, not as a fan, but because while I was training and while I was being educated, I was told you do the opposite of this, and here's why. So I've never liked her as a referee, but at the same time, like, I hold every opinion of mine based solely on the education that I received. Like you, I made it up through the practice matches. At that point, I had started to ref for the practice matches. I was getting ready to actually start matches. And then I ended up needing my neck reconstructed. And so that ended that.
It's over
I,
here.
I regret. Yep, right here. You
Yeah.
guys see my,
Yep.
my scar there?
I have a slightly different opinion, but before I Chris Benoit myself into that, I'm going to let the Silverfox.
Yeah, so I want your opinion as someone that you came up the same way I came up. You left similar and found success as a ref. So, what was your
Well, I appreciate that.
what was your education on it? What's your opinion on that?
Well, from what I can remember is I just kind of I was told I was going to be the referee, but then there was no like really official training. So I kind of went under the wing of Bobby Pisker. He's the referee for IWC down here, and CJ Sensation. I still work with CJ at 2PW. He's our head ref. He works in the back. He helps us out with it's me, Mark, Charles III, and George. I'd say his last name, but it's about this long and it begins with a Z. So sorry, George. But anyway, it's us three guys, and CJ's always good with giving advice, giving his thoughts on things like that. So I kind of learned as I went. Again, when I got into it, I kind of like, you know what? I'm just going to be dumb and learn from the beginning because I don't want to come off as like a know-it-all smart ass when I started training with wrestling, right? Too. So I kind of just like, I knew what I knew, but then made sure I really took their advice on things. And when it came to like things like the referee being like taking the shine or things like that, I've had a couple different things, but more so what I was told kind of leaned towards the, shut up and stay in the corner kind of thing. So I watched Jimmy Corderas. He did a training session at IWC once, and I watched a video that Joe Dabrowski has on, I think he has it, and IndieWrestling.us also has it. I watched this documentary that he did, and he's saying no, he wasn't a fan of the referees like really giving a whole lot of like facial expressions or get into the match. It was, you're an official. This is a real match. You got two guys, you're trying to keep it down the middle, and you know what I mean? You're not really trying to, pick the side. You're not trying to like have the flash and flare because you're just a ref. You're not like the superstar. There are some guys who have merch, referees that have some merch, whatever. You know what? If you're going to make a buck, make a buck. Because then there's guys that says, you know what? It's the indies. If you can make a few bucks, go for it. So I guess it's all kind of where you think and what you want to do, I guess, for the most part.
I mean, we know about some referees that are like twins that had some merch, right? Like we know about that.
Oh yeah,
the Hebners, yeah.
Yeah.
Earl Hebner got fired for selling merch, but it wasn't his merch. Right. He was selling bootleg like Cena merch.
I met Earl over in Philly at WrestleMania this year. It was really cool. It was one of my childhood guys. I'm like, oh man, Earl Hebner.
Yeah.
My kids were like, I have no idea what's going on here. Dad's geeking out, marking out.
I think besides that one situation, Earl Hebner has been a pretty stand-up guy, right? Like nobody hates Earl Hebner.
Yeah, I mean, I never heard anybody say anything bad about him. So, Sonny, I'm
gonna out-rip him.
You brought up Audrey Edwards. So, story about this, I guess. I didn't really know there was an indie scene in Pittsburgh till like 2012. So I was like way behind on all this. I had no idea about Norm Connors, who's now a funeral director here in town at Curran's. He helped my family twice. He helped with my mom when she passed, my grandfather. I had no idea who Norm was. In one show I asked, we were looking through the curtain and CJ was with me and Norm was in IWC. This was at a show for them. And I was like, who's Norm Connors? And CJ looks at me and says, you don't know who Norm Connors is? I was like, fuck if I know. I said, it was all new to me still. And like, and all these legends in the area and how they had ties. But Aubrey Edwards, going back to this, man, I can get sidetracked real easy. So we had, during COVID, because you brought up COVID, we had a tournament when we were allowed to perform just with nobody in the building. This was at Worthington. They did a tag team tournament thing. I think it might've been like over October-ish area. Well, there was, I think there was maybe 19, 20 matches, and I had to Ironman the whole thing. And this was all in one afternoon. This was one day's time. So I just took match by match, got the lowdown on information, things that I need to know. And
With
just kept taking
Gambino brothers.
Yeah. Well, Marshall Chuck Lippert is the owner of that 2PW. So at the end of this whole thing, and this was, oh my God, I think we started at like maybe 5 p.m. or something like that. I think we were done around like maybe 11 with like all the matches, something like that. Wow. It was a long day. So afterwards, Michael Sorg, who runs IndieWrestling.us, he says, did you know you just broke Aubrey Edwards' record? I'm like, who's Aubrey Edwards? I was like, I had no idea. Once again, I was new to this, and I got 9 billion things going through my head at the same time, and I didn't have a chance to really watch any other. I didn't watch AEW, or hell, for a while there, I didn't watch WWE. So I was just kind of clueless on anybody new that they were saying. I was like, I had no idea what you're talking about. He's like, yeah, you just broke her record. I was like, how the fuck did I break her record? He's like, well, she supposedly, I guess, reffed 18 matches over the course of 2 days. And I guess since I did like 18 to 20, somehow I broke her record in that one afternoon. I never got a plaque or anything, but if it was a pat on the back, I'm all right, cool. I'll take it.
I think you need a t-shirt that says I'm better than Aubrey on it.
I can do this.
You can hand that shirt out to everybody, though.
Yeah,
right. I mean, I would buy it. I would pay money for it. I pulled up Aubrey Edwards just because she was like an outlier a little bit. Like, she was kind of like to the point where people were complaining that she was inserting herself in matches. And I'm not against refs inserting themselves in matches, but I think it was just Aubrey was rubbing people a little bit the wrong way.
Yeah.
But the way that she was doing it.
Probably more the vets than anything, right?
I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that it's a woman too. I don't think. Look, I laid out plain and simple the reasons I disliked it, because I was educated by people who have accomplished a lot in the business, that there's a certain way, there's an etiquette to this, and she broke that
because she's a woman.
No, like, hold on. Let me make my point though. There is a large section of internet wrestling trolls that are the same ones that will complain about certain Disney movies recasting, or the skin color of a mermaid. That there's a little crossover, and I think Aubrey rubbed those people the wrong way, and it turned into a much bigger thing colloquially than it really should have turned into, to the point where it's like still constantly kind of addressed, and she like has publicly talked about how she's tried to get better, and
but she still charges like obscene amounts to get like a signature with her at these events.
Meet and greets.
Like Willie said,
that's not true. So that's not true.
Make a buck.
No, but she's a referee. She's not Jericho in the corner. I think you're conflating two separate things and using the facade because she's a woman. It's different. If Earl Hebner was out here doing elbow drops on the ring and making these big scenes about stuff, I think people would just be as pissed.
I don't think so, because if you go back and you watch those classic matches,
he never did that. Earl Hebner never did that.
Hebner very often would kick people's arms off of ropes when they were using the rope to.
Well, that's different
I
than
don't-
splaying yourself on the ring.
No, I
and
don't
making
think
a
so.
team.
I don't think so, because when you fall into that, like if a referee is supposed to stand there and ref it, then he should be counting. You know, hey,
What
1,
Aubrey
2,
Edwards has
3,
been doing
4, and then you
is
disqualify
way
him.
different than what the Hebners ever did.
I mean, I hate the fact that you've now put me in a position where I have to defend her. Like, don't forget when this conversation started, I was like, "Oh, she's trash," but I
Show me.
Show you what?
Show me where any referee in the WWE has ever done anything like Aubrey Edwards has done.
I just explained to you.
No,
Didn't that one guy do a cartwheel once?
Kicking a foot off a rope is not the same thing as splaying yourself in the middle of the ring and sitting there with your hand up on your face and acting like you're tired from reffing the whole match.
Oh, I agree. Like it definitely goes too far, but there are instances where certain refs have had their gimmicks where they're if you're holding onto the rope while you're doing a submission, then they cartoonishly will kick your arm off of the rope or something. And that's not just an outlier one match. That was a thing that happened often. Or Nick Patrick. Nick Patrick had a whole gimmick.
But that's not even close to what I was saying.
Nick Patrick was in the NWO. Like, that's very much like what you were saying.
But he didn't lay himself out in the ring.
He did all kinds of cartoony shit, though. But
Everybody
because he was
the gimmick.
Okay, that's the gimmick. So they've allowed her to have this gimmick.
She created her own gimmick.
And she accidentally did it, and nobody corrected her, and it's now ballooned into something.
And nobody corrected her. Nobody was around.
That's a problem.
Anyways,
in that company.
All right, we're off track. We're off track here.
See, this is what's like inside my head. The left brain cell and the right brain cell. They just
This leads me to the next talking point, though. Okay, so forgive me because I don't remember her name right now, but the ring announcer that is on Monday Night Raw and does the pay-per-views does the same. Yes,
I agree with you, Samantha Irvin.
The same over the top.
I agree
shit.
with you. Yes.
And to the point where she does cartoony voices. If somebody comes out and they're from a country, she'll do an accent, and everybody's like, "Oh, she's so damn cute." But so
I agree with you.
that is also something that I think.
Really, at first, I was not a fan of her. I think,
but
she may have laid off of all that. I think she may have laid off all that. Now I'm like, all right, it's not bad.
I can say
Ricochet kind of lucky, right?
WrestleMania,
yeah.
Like.
She sounded great at Mania.
Yeah,
maybe live.
Right.
I thought it was terrible because I don't watch WWE very often. I only watch like pay-per-views, like the like the big fours. My kids.
I mean, she's not Howard Finkel, but
that is true. I actually kind of had the same argument with somebody else maybe a couple months ago, and they said, "Oh, Samantha Irvin, yay, thumbs up," and all this stuff. I'm like, and they're like, "Look, you do her." I'm like, "Well, wait a minute, me doing her and her abilities, two different things." Okay,
that thought process is exactly why she's been allowed to do all this buffoonery. But
I'm like, you can put a hot apple pie in front of me. I'm gonna be like, "Hey, baby, how are you doing at this point?" I mean, it's been a while for your old boy here. Like, good Lord. So. Jesus,
I don't know if doing a show like this will help you in that regard at all.
Oh no,
I'm done. It's over.
But it's funny though. It's an interesting dichotomy, right? And I don't know if everybody else just needs to catch on or not, but pro wrestling is a show, right? And to have a successful show, everybody should be allowed to be that over the top showman personality. But there's that terrible fear in a wrestler that you're gonna lose your spot or you're gonna take less of a income when somebody else comes along and gets a better reaction. So it's almost like, dude, referees should be allowed to get over the top sometimes, or Samantha Irvin should be allowed to be goofy as shit.
I don't disagree with that though,
but it just doesn't
there's a
work
time and a place.
Either.
There's a time and a place, and the Silverfox agrees with me. Drew, you're canceled. We're done. Out of here. Bye.
like when Bruce Buffer does his dumb 360 before when it, if we're gonna
Bruce Buffer.
it's no, not Bruce Buffer. Who's his brother from the UFC? Which Buffer does the UFC?
Oh, the Are You Ready to Rumble guy, Bruce. Is that
Yeah,
who you're talking about?
his brother
His
is
brother
the announcer
does
for the UFC.
Yeah.
His name is
I
Bruce.
don't remember or recall.
Yeah, Bruce Anthony Buffer is an American professional mixed martial arts ring announcer. Yeah, his brother is the Are You Ready to Rumble guy, Michael Buffer. But
Michael Buffer,
Bruce,
there you go.
Bruce Buffer got famous because when he would do his over the top announcing, he would fucking jump and do 360.
Yes, but it was
the Buffer
contained
360
in that one specific moment. It wasn't the rest of the match.
No, but a ring announcer would only announce the beginning and end of your entrance and your. So like I'm almost arguing with myself here, but like I was embedded with like, this is what you need to do. This is how a show should look. And so like, I don't know. I think like all of wrestling should, what was the MTV wrestling? Wrestling Society X. Something like that. Or, what was
which was a
Lucha
fun
Underground.
Show, by the way.
Lucha Underground, right?
It really
Like,
hurt me.
I watched some of Lucha Underground, but I don't remember the MTV Wrestling X thing.
Oh, you should
man,
look up Wrestling Society X, man. It ran for one season.
It was like the precursor
episodes.
of Lucha Underground a little bit. Like they had like Mad Dog from CCW on there. They had but they had like all these like indie dudes from
Seth Rollins when he was Tyler Black was there.
But some of them would like wear masks too, so it wasn't their actual persona. They would show up.
Matt Classic was a gimmick that Colt Cabana did, where he wrestled under a mask, and his gimmick was like almost like a 1930s style pro wrestler, which we saw many other wrestlers start doing that after he did it on WSX. So yeah, but I think like some or CZW or there's lots of Chikara over the top wrestling that allows everyone to be over the top, and it does always catch on. So I don't know if it's just part of, like I was saying, that fear that wrestlers have that they're going to lose their spot or somebody's going to not pay to see you, and instead of kind of being like company minded. But yeah, so I don't know. I've now convinced myself, thanks to you guys, that Samantha Irving is awesome, and so is Aubrey Edwards. So thanks a lot for that shit.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with thinking they're both awesome, right? Like, who cares? If you like them, you like them.
Yeah.
And isn't that pretty much what the wrestling world is nowadays? It's either you like them or you don't. You're going to have the people, whether it's you do or don't. And I guess that's what makes it fun too nowadays, is that it's not just bad guy, good guy. It's
the heels are faces, and the faces are heels.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
That's Lord Zoltan.
So everyone who isn't familiar with Zoltan just questioned what you just did there.
Yeah, I thought about that after I did it.
The climate of the world, JC. The climate of the world.
I mean, it's been the climate of the world since like the 40s. So like, it doesn't matter when I did it.
But well, like, so if you didn't even catch on to the indie scene until like 2012, what? Obviously, you went to the same high school as me, and until I started backyard wrestling in town, I didn't know that you were into wrestling. I remember you and I were in the same chorus class together. That's what I remember most about you in high school. So how did you, like, when did you get into wrestling? And like, did you ever actually have that I'm going to do this someday mentality? Or did you just kind of fall into that as an adult?
Dude, I was watching wrestling when I was like 3 years old. I remember the Hogan and Andre match, like WrestleMania match. Like I had the monster ring. I had all the rubber, Hulk Hogan, rubber Roddy Piper action figures. And So, I mean, I was always a fan of it. It kind of, I remember like watching it up to a certain point, but then it was like early 90s. And that's about 90s when we moved here into our house here in Leechburg now. Got it from my grandparents. So like when we moved here, when we inherited the house, like there was a couple years that I just totally forgot about it. I didn't really get back into it till about 95-ish, something like that. Like pre-Attitude era. And I remember going, my mom had a friend that lived in Apollo. We'd go over to her house every now and then. Well, I guess her friend's dad, who seemed ancient at the time to me, because I was only like maybe 10 or so anyhow, they were watching WCW. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. I remember them guys. I think it was the Bushwhackers or Bobby Heenan. There was somebody like that on the TV. And I was like, he was in the other one, though. So it started like turning my wheels again. So like, yeah, back in like 95, I really started to get back on the wrestling train and started watching it again religiously. And then, of course, a couple periods again, once again, I stopped watching it for a while, jumped back into it, stopped watching it, which I guess is the beauty of it too, because it's all new to you then, after a while. As far as the, the indie scene was back in like, it was like 2012, 14-ish, maybe something like that. It was me and my ex-wife. We went to the Royal Rumble. It was in Pittsburgh. It was that year. So I think it had to be 14. And I didn't know that she knew somebody who was sitting down at the other end of our row. We were like mid-row, so they were sitting down off to the right somewhere. And she went over and started talking to this woman, and I'm just like, okay, whatever, somebody she obviously knows. Well, she comes back. I was like, who is that? She's like, well, that's Jenny Plummer. I was like, oh, okay. I went to school with her or whatever. Her husband runs a independent wrestling promotion. I'm like, why did you never tell me about this? Like, so it was, wah. So I took that as a sign, I guess, because it was always something I wanted to do. Like every kid that watched it, be like, who doesn't want to be, Hulk Hogan at the time, or hell, Shawn Michaels was one of the guys I wanted to be. You know what I mean? Yeah. So yeah, it was always a, living the boyhood dream, like to get in the ring, to even if it's just an indie ring, like it's still cool as shit.
It's this beautiful thing that only wrestling fans are able to relate to, because I don't think like any other form of entertainment really breeds that. Like you can watch a million movies and never once consider yourself like, I'm going to be an actor one day. Or, like how many times have you turned the radio on? I've never been like, you know what? I'm going to start producing some sick ass bars. But, you watch wrestling as a kid and you're like, I'm going to do that. And I did it. And my kids absolutely, for better or worse, love pro wrestling. And all I hear is, when we get older, we're going to be wrestlers, or, when we're older, we're going to be a tag team. We're going to be in this company. And nobody, I used to say the same thing, right? And nobody encouraged it. And I absolutely, it held myself back in life, because I did not follow that dream. Mm-hmm. I don't think that any time, like I've dropped out of college multiple times. I think
I'm real sad now because I didn't follow it. Like I'm real depressed. Like the only thing I said was I'm going to be a racist someday, and guess what?
Well, that's all for today, folks. We'll see you next week.
We'll see ya. Thanks for joining us on the Watchers.
But 28 years old comes around. I have the extra cash. I'm physically, not only am I physically fit, but I'm a specimen.
Drew was good at it too.
I was a specimen. I don't know what your tryout was like, but my tryout, first of all, I had to run a mile just to prove that I wouldn't die trying to do it.
Who was the guy that we did that with?
Brandon K.
Yeah, we stood there and he was timing you, and you were just running around. I was bullshitting with him. He's like, "Yeah, I'm just making him run."
Yeah, So I ran a mile around the building in McKeesport, which, by the way, not the safest place to be running
No.
freely.
Yeah, right.
No.
I
You see a guy running down there, there's another issue.
right. So I do that mile, and then it was 200 push-ups, 180 sit-ups, and I think 190 or 200 squats. And that was the next part, like the next portion. And after that, you had to do all like the flips, the rolls, and everything. But they gave you the time limit was on the squats, sit-ups, and push-ups. If you didn't do that in the time limit, you failed, right? And even as physically fit as I was, and you saw me because you were there when we did our backyard wrestling reunion after I passed the tryout. So even though you knew me as like the one of the fat guys in town that hit each other with chairs all the time, you did see me because the evidence is now gone. I'm back to that fat guy. But I was a specimen, and I finished that tryout with 7 minutes left, which is impressive as shit. And it's talking about how awesome I was made me forget my point. But,
Very obvious.
See, he's a heel wrestler right there.
I was the
Talks
most
all about himself. Totally forgot.
I was the most over guy in the building.
Who's the only guy in the building?
Well, talking about like doing the whole tryout thing, I remember I was in there. It was me. It was Big Rig Tyler Harrison, who's still out there throwing people around. There was this long-haired kid. He came from Clarion, I think. I think he drove down to Jefferson Township, whatever it is on the other side of Pittsburgh, where the training facility was. So he was driving there a few times, and then he ended up just not coming back, I guess. But I remember doing, I think it was, you had you in a wheelbarrow to do push-ups. So you had to do 10 push-ups each corner of the ring. I made it through about 3 3/4 turnbuckles before I'm like, I have no more blood in my shoulders. There's no way I could push this up. And meanwhile, I have my daughter sitting there because Alexa came with me to my training sessions for the majority of the time. And I had Chris LaRusso come down and be like, push. I'm like, I can't. I'm like struggling real hard. I'm like, I really, really tried. There was just nothing left. I was impressed with myself, mind you, because I was a physical specimen back then because I was going to the Iron Pit gym down here in Leechburg, and James Stewart, you know the Stewarts here in Leechburg. Candy Stewart, she was the teacher, whoever in Leechburg High School, but her son, so he ended up being my trainer. So he worked me. So I was doing the ropes, I was running, I was doing a whole bunch of stuff. He's like, you should be fine doing this tryout thing. Well, they still let me in, you know. I think it was maybe 300 squats. They did those push-ups. My God, I don't remember all we did, but I knew I was there for about 2 or 3 hours getting my ass handed to me, doing the rolls and all that stuff. So I remember doing 500 500 squats just during a normal training session. I remember doing that, you know, jelly legged after that, and you still had 2.5 hours of class to go. So that was fun. Chop day, that was fun. Nothing like having, you know, red turkeys all over you. But yeah, man, it was a time. I'm glad I'm still part of it.
Yeah, that's one thing I'm kind of
that.
jealous of. Like, ever since I stepped away, right? So like I said earlier, it was actually a point of contention for me. I quit watching. And then AEW started, and I was fine. Like, I was glad to finally have an alternative. And of course, Lee Moriarty is signed to that company. And I'm like, you know what, dude? Lee Moriarty taught me how to build a wrestling ring. Like, he was there as a star of PWX while I was training at PWX. This is a dude from my class. Like, this is like one of those instances where you see someone you know having success. And that kind of brought me out of that dark place where I couldn't even watch it anymore because I was so disappointed. And the worst part for me was it wasn't my fault. I was good at it. I was excelling at it. And then I just couldn't do it anymore. So then I went through a whole training where you're basically taught like, hey man, if you're a ref, you ain't shit. So why would I drive 2.5 hours during training after I physically can't go anymore until I have this neck surgery? And I tried so hard to lie about it. They told me I couldn't bump anymore until I had a doctor's excuse. And so I was like, I'll go to a chiropractor. I go to the chiropractor. His exact words were, you need to go see a real doctor for this neck thing. Like, it was that bad that a chiropractor even referred to himself as not a real doctor. So it was tough for me to watch it. And now, though, like post neck surgery, I really wish that I had some way to kind of, even if it is, reffing or like a managerial thing. Like, I think I would kill it as a manager, but I just don't know where to go or anything like that. And that's the infection of being a pro wrestling fan and a wrestler, that like, just like every kid who watches it's like, I'm going to do that one day. I did it. It was taken away from me. I was finally at peace with it. And now I'm like, what's stopping me? What's stopping me? I was 28 before I ever passed the tryout and was a wrestler, right? So why can't I do this at 36? Why can't I get back in there? Why can't I do this? Okay, well, the wife says if I try it, she's going to leave me because she doesn't want me to be crippled. Fair enough, and I respect that opinion. But, I
lost a girlfriend for that same one, but yeah.
I can be a manager, take a couple of bumps once in a while. You can hit me in the head with the chair. Like, so it's weird that it's like it just doesn't ever leave. And like, it's like I said, only people that love wrestling can understand it, because I'm looked at like a lunatic by people. When I first like was training, that's when I like met my wife, and like her sister was like, he's a wrestler. And like there were like people who were like telling her not to hang out with me over it. Like, he's gonna hurt himself. He's not gonna be able to like provide a family or anything like that. And I was like, what? Well,
which he still isn't providing a family, but it's besides the point.
Right. I ended up, and another thing you and I always had in common is I'm a freaking chef. So like, that's not like that pays the bills either. And you work just as hard and your body hurts just as much.
Yeah. 20 years in that shit. I know.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but
out of that now I work in a press stamping place.
That sounds a lot better. I'm being honest.
mean, you know what? I can't even bitch about my job. I mean, I can, and of course I will, but if it wasn't for the fact they were so lenient with me and doing things with the kids, like for the last couple months, I've been going into work at 9:15 instead of 7 because I dropped the kids off at school. So from Leechburg to Lower Borough, where I dropped them off at, boss was fine with it. So I'm like, you know what? I can't. What can I say bad? You pay for my insurance. I don't have to pay a dime for it. Like, it's not a terrible job. You got some lifting, but so what?
Yeah. I tried print press stuff for a little bit at Leeds. I don't even remember. I'm sure you know where that's at. But I got
former employee.
bored. I was so bored there. I just kind of walked out.
Yeah, I remember I was doing the picking and on the forklifts and stuff there for a while. I had many jobs.
I didn't get to do any of that cool stuff. I was just one of the guys that was like, I'm going to put this design on an umbrella for 8 hours. I was like, well, before I do this, I need to get out of here.
I worked down in that building that day. I'm like, oh my God. I would lose my mind. Like, I just hit a button. And like,
yeah.
I need to,
but
I don't mind easy, but my God, that was driving me nuts.
Yeah, absolutely. So like, do you see yourself just kind of finishing up as a 2PW referee, or do you see maybe any aspirations to get back in the ring somewhere else, even if it's just a wrestler? Or are there other hats that you want to try to wear, announcing or commentating or anything like that?
Serial killer. Or...
Lady killer. That's what I am. That's why they call me the Silverfox, man.
Ooh.
Oh no! On that note, fuck you, dude. Because you've had that gray hair in the front of your head since you were in high school, and not a single other hair on your head is gray. Like that is.
And you have hair on your head.
So
that's true.
You have both of us
guys.
beat in that regard.
And I just got it trimmed, so sorry.
And to be honest, I don't think I really knew you too much until the reunion show that we did some years ago. And you might not even remember who I was back then. But
I barely remember who was there.
I got you.
Big and I knew Christy was there. Guys, but
it was good, man. But that head of hair, man, I'm telling you,
it's not going anywhere anytime soon. But yeah,
good genetics.
You call it genetics. I call it a freak chemical accident at the Apollo pool. That's how I think it came about. But yeah, I had that since I was 10. So it's been a while. Me and this gray stripe go way back.
I'm just waiting for the rest of it to catch up. I
got a spot like here, and I got like a spot on this side somewhere, but that's it. It's not as big as the floof in the front.
I'm younger than you, and I'm looking full Santa Claus at this point.
Well, I can't grow a beard to save my life, so I got this Three Musketeers thing going on here.
It works though.
Yeah,
I go for it.
And it's not gray.
There's some salt in there. It just looks better right now.
It doesn't look gray on camera, so
it doesn't look gray on camera. Yes. No. Well, you're talking about being old. I'm like, I didn't bust into the indie scene, start training until I was like 34, something like that. Anyway, so I was into my 30s before I even started this whole wrestling thing. I've definitely thought about doing ring announcer or just commentary or managerial stuff. There was an opportunity for me. Chris LaRusso said that, I have a spot for you, but I need you to show up at the training center. And I unfortunately didn't take that. It was the kids I had at the time that day, or it was still a rough time for me when he presented me with that. I was like, son of a bitch. And I think the guy who stepped into that spot is Deputy Don Murphy. And all more power to him. No, I have no hard feelings against the guy. He's good at what he does. He's playing that heel part. All the more power to him. Do I kind of think about that from time to time? Like, that could have been me. I could have been doing, whatever. Sure. Absolutely. I think about it. There's not a whole lot I don't think back and reminisce on or say, do the whole what if. But as a referee, I definitely love handling that whole lot better than, doing the in-ring competitor stuff. I mean, I really wouldn't have it any other way for right now, honestly. In the future, as it always says, you can never say never. So who knows? I've been doing the Elijah Dean diet workout plan. He's been helping a bunch of people.
That's similar to JC's Paula Dean diet.
Yeah. I ain't familiar with that one. But
it's all butter. It's all butter, baby.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah, no, I'm not familiar with that. That's the last thing I need.
I didn't know we were taking shots at each other during this podcast. Good God. All right.
My God.
Well, you talked about my thinning hairline, so I've been waiting.
Before we started recording.
It was the technology issue. We got started a little later than normal. We'll blame it on the technology.
Man, right in the
got us all riled up. But
right.
But yeah, like I said, he's been helping people out. He's helped me out. He gave me my diet plan. Like I said, I've been struggling with it. just trying to juggle kids, and my schedule from day to day changes. So I think that's part of a issue that I need to get more consistent on. I know I had like about 3 hours yesterday. I could have done it, but after work, I was so damn tired. I went straight to bed. So, it's part on you, part on, the fact you need the discipline and things to stay consistent.
But aside from like the wrestling stuff and that, but you do like the radio voiceover.
Oh yes, yeah. I'm still part of TNN Country Radio. I was their midnight to 6 a.m. guy, Monday through Friday. I stepped back from that a little while ago. Just a lot of things that are coming up. I have a third child, my baby girl, and there's been some issues with me and her mom, so it's been going to court over. So I took a step back from that to make sure that, there's times where I feel like I get way ahead of myself, get that anxious anxiety feeling. So I recognized it, and I says, I need this time to do something else that will benefit me. It was a great gig. I still have my spot. The director of TNN, he was talking to me and says, well, whenever you want to come back, I totally get it. You got to take care of family first. So total respect to John Harlow for that. He was out in the Johnstown area. So yeah, I was doing the country radio thing for TNN. I was on this other station called Parkway 106. It was a bit of a train wreck. The kid was 21 and he thought he knew what the hell he was doing, and he really didn't. But parted ways with him, and TNN picked me up along with Heather Myers, who was a radio DJ here in Pittsburgh. Me and her talk pretty often too. So it was cool to be on the same team with her, get her advice, expertise, things like that. And besides the radio thing, I do DJs on the side. I just got done DJing a wedding here about a week ago for a couple people I knew. Got a grad party coming up next weekend, and I got a wedding at the end of the month. So I keep busy with that side gig too.
Hey,
I'm a busy guy. Told you, man of many jobs. Jack of all trades.
Do you have anything like pluggable dates? Any 2PW dates or any?
Oh yeah. Oh, for sure. Jesus. Why was I not ready for that? Like, I should have had that already pulled up. I should have had it on a T-shirt, or should have had something. I do have the dates here somewhere.
That's okay.
When I find it, if I was smart, I'd probably just go straight to the website. Oh, there it is. So yeah, our next one's coming up on June 14th, actually, up at Worthington. These are all at Worthington.
Next weekend.
Yeah. So June 14th, we got August 2nd, September 20th, November 15th, and December 13th. And you can go to prospectprowrestling.com and check out all the info there, tickets and whatnot.
All right. So, awesome. Hey, this was fun catching up. And
I think we have so much more to talk about. I'm gonna have to come back. I just reinvited myself, so there you go.
let's do it again, man. Anytime. Yeah, you can join. You can jump in. We have I speak with Shirley Doe regularly. We have a lot of stuff in common outside of wrestling. So I have Doe on, and he's gonna come back at some point. Last time we talked, we just talked about like exploitation movies. We didn't even talk about wrestling. So yeah. Invitation is always open to people to come back. We like having a good time with everybody.
For sure.
Yeah, we'll definitely. I love talking wrestling, and we didn't even get into any of our backyard wrestling stuff.
Yeah, I know. That's why I was like, man, I don't know if we can cram this into typically an hour.
But even though we skipped the backyard wrestling thing, we're doing one more reunion.
Yeah, he keeps saying that, but
well, I ain't gonna lie, I thought it too.
Yeah. I am, however, working on a documentary about backyard wrestling. I'll tell you more about that.
That ends in one more show.
We got Big A out here. He's giving me the side eye. He's trying to take his meds for his tooth. He's like, I'm just taking the whole bottle right now because he's like, you bunch of crazy bastards.
One more.
I'm sure we can rake in all the old guys.
We'll do it in Cleveland. We'll get a ring. We'll do it real.
Okay.
There we go.
We'll leave it at on the table as a possibility. I'm gonna go ahead and hit the outro because I have had to pee for about 30 minutes. Thank you for joining us, Willie. It was awesome. This
Dude,
is
it was a
Silver
pleasure.
Thank
Fox.
you. Thank
was
you
a
so much.
blast.
Yep. Everybody have a great evening. Thank you for watching our show, listening to our show, all the support. Don't forget to check out our Indiegogo for our horror movie that we're currently filming. Really got to pee. I'll catch you all later.
The preceding program has been brought to you by the Watchers Podcast Network. If you enjoyed the show, please like, subscribe, and share with your friends to help grow our network. Check us out on all social media platforms, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. And until next time, thanks for your support.